What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we have a jam-packed video for you guys, so let's jump right into it. So first things first, let's talk about how the market ended last week. So markets downturned starting the 26th. You can see that we had a strong selling day and then we had a relief bounce, but we still dropped below the 50-day moving average on Friday. So the last time we dropped below the 50-day moving average was back in October. So October, when we dropped below that 50-day moving average, you can see that we came down below the 100-day moving average. So things could definitely get worse from here, but these are called corrections. These happen all the time. It happens when the market needs to correct its price back down to a healthier level and people start taking profits from that high. So it's not uncommon. We talked about how you can combat this or how you can make money off this in our previous video. So I recommend that you go and watch it if you haven't done so already. I'll leave a link in the description, and hit that subscribe button for me on your way there, please. So the next thing we're going to talk about is silver, which is usually not a name in the game, but apparently Redditors have switched over to silver for their liking. So now silver is expected to have a crazy week this week. So you can see that the silver chart is already pretty bullish and expected to go to $28 over the next few weeks. However, it's probably going to gap up way above that going into tomorrow. When looking at the futures market for silver, you can see that it's moved up already significantly and sharply. So we are expected to have another frenzy this week. So currently market futures are down. We can see that the S&P futures are below their closing on Friday, but that could change. Futures are trading all night, but we can clearly see that there's weakness in the market. We just talked about the S&P chart. So the next thing we're going to move over to are the chart requests, and in those chart requests are a few silver stocks. So I definitely recommend you stick around and you watch for those chart requests. So first we have Tilray. Tilray had what we call a failed breakout. The stock had potential. You can see that the stock had a wedge up breakout, but unfortunately the market downturn has swept up what could have been their potential, and they've fallen back below the 10-day moving average. So the next support they have here is going to be at 17, and then it's going to be at the 20-day moving average. If the stock market continues to downturn or decline this week, then we can see the stock coming down to that 20-day moving average before potentially bouncing. Next stock we're going to talk about is going to be VRM. VRM at this very moment on the daily chart is still trading below the 10-day moving average. So the stock is not in safe territory just yet. You can see that it's still being resisted back down below the 10-day moving average. And unfortunately, when it comes to stock market downturns, when they do sell off, they actually continuously sell off and they take everything down with them. So watch out for that. So going into tomorrow, if the stock does have an upside move, pay attention to volume, because we could just have a relief bounce as an overall market before further declining. So make sure you pay attention. You want strong volume that pushes the stock above the 10-day moving average. So the next stock we're going to talk about is NIO. So one of the hottest names in the game at all times. So NIO closed below the 10 and the 20-day moving average. Volume is kind of weak for a stock like NIO. You can see that there's not a lot of action. Therefore, the stock is not selling off as severely as other stocks with a lot of volume, because they're likely expected to go back up. So there is a lot of hope for NIO. NIO will find its way back around, and it's still above the initial breakout price. So NIO broke out at $55 and it's still trading above it. So as far as right now, the stock is not in terrible condition. It can dip back down to 48 and even 40 and still be considered in very good shape, and you can still average down on the stock and ride it back up. So this is just downturning because of the market downturn. NIO is expected to recover. SDC or Smile Direct Club. Let's see what's going on with the daily candles here. You can see that the stock has had a massive upside move recently. So very strong volume, and then the pullback volume is much weaker than the upside volume, suggesting that buyers are still interested in the stock. The stock is still trading above its initial breakout. So notice how the stock had a resistance point right here at $13, and then it broke above it, and that's where it's holding support currently. So it could drop below it to the 10 and the 20-day moving averages, but it could be a good time to get into the stock and use those 10 and 20-day moving averages as your support points for stop loss potential. JMIA. This stock has a lot of indecisive days. You can see that the stock wants to go up. It's been trying. These long wicks at the top tell you that that's the highest price that the stock has been driven through those days. But unfortunately, it keeps getting pulled back down and the market downturn is not helping it. But as far as right now, the stock could very much be forming a bullish flag. And as long as it holds the 10-day moving average support, the stock can come off of it and bounce back towards 64 and 68. So very bullish on this stock. However, if it drops below that 10-day moving average, it's probably going to come down to the 20-day moving average, and that could happen in a market downturn. The next stock we're going to talk about is Zoom. So Zoom is one of the stocks we're watching this week. We are watching for a $400 breakout eventually. However, getting into the stock is still possible if we use the 20-day moving average as our support. So we can get into a small position above the 20-day moving average, use that as our stop loss or support, and eventually look for a 380 breakout in which we can add to our position and then add more above the $400 breakout to eventually move us to 440 and above. Why are we talking about Zoom? And that's because as COVID cases rise, Zoom has been quiet for quite a while, and Friday we saw action in COVID-related stocks. They may have not been Zoom, but they were healthcare related, and that's enough to tell us that the markets are shifting, money cycles are shifting into other stocks. DraftKings. So this one, Super Bowl coming up, excited one. We actually have a position trade open in our group on DraftKings in which we cut in half last week. The reason why we cut it in half is protection against the market downturn and the fact that the stock has been rejected off of 57.50 a few times and it hasn't even pushed back with strong volume towards it, has a little bit of a notion to it that the stock could see a downturn. Super Bowl is indeed coming up, but an event like that may cause very, very short-term movement in the stock, maybe a day or two ahead of the weekend, but it may not rescue the stock against a market downturn. So for now, we're not looking at the best shapes, and it's one to watch for potentially cutting the position. LAZR. So this one is a popular one as well in the EV or self-driving market. The stock has more bullish volume lately. However, volume is uninterested on Thursday and Friday. So it's downturned below the 10 and the 20-day moving average. And this stock is fairly young. So you have to be careful because a stock with a very short-term chart history has weaker indicators. So I'd be careful with this one. I would use 30 or 31 as my primary support to exit the stock potentially. Or if it breaks above 35, then it's back in healthier conditions. Next stock is NOVA. This one, unfortunately, it didn't meet our standards. So this was part of our watch list a few weeks ago, but the stock completely downturned and it's fallen below the 10 and the 20-day moving average, and it looks like it's going to fall more. So what's happening with the stock is currently it's building what is a bearish flag in which the stock breaks and then it has a day of relief. So you can see that it had a relief bounce, but then the next day it sells right back down. So the stock could easily break below this point and keep falling towards 40 and 35, possibly the 50 and the 100-day moving averages, which are not running on the current chart. The next stock we're going to talk about is going to be AMD. So AMD, wow, that's a pretty intense chart. I haven't looked at this chart for some time, and these guys are going down. So they may have a relief bounce back up to 88 this week, but they are heavily bearish. And the fact that they just had volume and they still haven't, the fact that they just had earnings and they still haven't bounced up, that's a grim picture. We're looking at a potential drop towards $80 on AMD. So this is going to be a shaky one. I wouldn't stay in them below 88. It could easily come down much further. So next stock is Alibaba. Alibaba also seeing red days. Is that an earnings? Is that accurate earnings? Let's go ahead and check it out. Let's see. Baba. So their earnings on the 2nd. So yeah, their earnings are coming up in 2 days. I would stay away from the stock before earnings because anything could happen through earnings, whether they do good or bad. And given the market conditions, things are kind of twisted right now. We really don't know how stocks are going to react in the next week. So the next one we're going to talk about is SLV. So silver is going to be, like we said, a hot topic this week. Let's see what we can make of the current silver chart. Right now, we're looking bullish. You can see that there was a strong buying day on Thursday, followed by a red day in which stayed above the highest point of that day. So you can see that although it was a red day, buyers still maintained a price above $24 or the previous day. Tomorrow we're looking for a break above 25.50, but the stock will already have gapped up by the morning because of the Reddit driven news. So by open, these guys are going to be sitting above $30. So at that point, entering the stock right at open may be one strategy that is a little premature. What I would prefer to do is wait for the stock to kind of calm down from the morning hype and then have it pull back and have an entry point at that point, knowing that it will continue to be driven up. We don't know how broker platforms are going to regulate this. They could easily limit down or restrict down how many shares you could buy, but that's only Robinhood doing that at the very moment. So we can see a massive influx of buyers on silver. Another silver stock we can talk about is going to be AG or First Majestic. You can see that these guys also gapped up Friday and Thursday, and they had more red or selling volume, but they're still significantly higher and are likely going to be driven much higher tomorrow given the futures of the silver market. So very interesting moves on these two. Next we have HL, also a silver stock. These guys are likely going to gap up, and these guys will likely be driven a lot higher than the other ones because they are much cheaper. So they are a mining company, but they are much cheaper. Therefore, there's going to be more buyers because it's a cheaper stock. So therefore, it causes more interest. So very interesting week going into this week. Very hot next stock is going to be Mara. This is from the Bitcoin market or the crypto market. Let's see what Bitcoin is up to before we move into Mara. So Bitcoin as of right now, it's not doing anything interesting, but it's also not bearish. Therefore, Mara could see some action this week. We've seen Bitcoin stocks do well during market downturns. So if markets do indeed downturn and Bitcoin sees a little bit of more buyers because people are moving their money into a different market, then we can see Mara potentially break above $22 tomorrow and make its move towards 24. And if there is a large amount of buyers, then it can move to 26. So if it does move above 22, this is considered a swing trade. So I would hold the stock and hold it through 26 and 28. Next stock we're going to talk about is Amazon. So Amazon has seen a few red days as well. They have earnings in 2 days. So this is going to be an interesting one given earnings and how they have been for Apple. So Apple reported their earnings and they had a over $100 billion quarter, yet they still have dropped significantly. Amazon is seeing a lot of selling as well, so we can use that 20-day moving average tomorrow as support, and it can potentially come down to 3,100 if it breaks below it and below Friday's low. So watch for a break below 3,180 tomorrow for a potential move towards 3,100 next. If it breaks 3,100, then that's going to be by earnings, in which I don't recommend that we play earnings. Next stock is going to be Fubo. So that's also a very hot stock, FUBO. Not doing too well lately, so I'm not sure why this stock is getting driven up so much. This is kind of more of a retail stock or a hype stock. It's moving up, correct, but it's very bearish at the moment. You can see a very strong bearish engulfing that happened last week, followed by another strong red day that can easily drop it below the 10-day moving average. So we can use that 10-day moving average tomorrow as support. So the next stock we have is CCIV. Now this is a hot one because they're expected to have a merger, or there are rumors of a merger between them and Lucid Motors, which is going to be a very exciting IPO for a lot of people because Lucid Motors has a very unique looking, very fast and very luxury electric vehicle. So this is going to be an interesting IPO. If it does indeed go through for them, these guys will fly above 30. Right now they're high risk because nothing is confirmed, but if they are confirmed, then they will fly very quickly. Next stock we're going to talk about is VXX. Now VXX is the fear index, some might call it, and it goes up as markets drop. You can see that volume has significantly gone up on VXX, which means that the near term is expected to be bearish on the overall market. VXX is a great protection against the market. It's a way to make money on the downturns of the market because it goes up. So VXX is one to pay attention to this week. You also have FAZ. This one also goes up when the market downturns. Next stock we have is SUNW. So this one is it has fallen from its highs. So the stock had made a monster move towards 30 last week, but unfortunately the market downturn took it back down below the 10-day moving average. Selling volume on the way back down has been a lot weaker than the buying volume, so the stock may just break out of this channel down pattern. You want it to break out and move above $22 for the safest entry, or you can catch it when it moves above the 10-day moving average and use that as your support or stop loss point. But if it breaks above the $22 mark, then the stock could head back towards the $30 price target. Final stock we're going to talk about is ARBKF. Now, this one is an OTC market stock, and they are very high risk because they are such a young company on the American market. Currently, the stock is seeing some bearish days, and that's likely because of the downturn that happened on Bitcoin. They are a blockchain Bitcoin related stock. Right now, we're looking for the stock to maintain a level above the 10 and the 20-day moving average and break above 1.40 for a move back towards $2. But below 1.40, the stock is not going to give us much action. Strongest support we have is the dollar point. Anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button for me. You guys have a great trading week.